does the most sustainable man on the planet eat? We're going to talk to one of our great friends, Joshua Spodek. You're there, Josh. Sorry for being late. Wasn't meant to be late, but you know, things happen, right?
Yes. Good to be here. Good to see everyone.
So it's good for you to. You're getting up early in the morning as usual for our conferences because you're in New York, right?
Yes. So it's just 7 a.m. here.
7 a.m. in the morning. Time for breakfast to you. Time to do some lunch cooking for us here on stage. So we're bringing up now here on stage. I don't know if you see that, but
Oh,
a
yes.
table with three identical pressure cookers, because this is almost like a scientific experiment. We complement that on a side table here, a bunch of other stuff as well. What else do we need? We supposedly we have prepped all the ingredients here. Yes, and we're gonna cook a little. So, Josh, but before we start cooking, while we are setting up, so tell us a bit. Who are you?
Well, I think on the program I'm listed as a zero waste activist. And you could look at me that way, but I really think of myself as someone who I live by my values, and my values include sustainability and trying to hurt people as little as I can. And I know that when I buy packaged food, that stuff is going to go a lot. All that packaging is going to go in the waste, and so I try to avoid that. So something like almost 10 years ago, I challenged myself to see if I could go for a week without buying any packaged food, just to see if I could do it. I frankly didn't think I could. And living in Manhattan with all these amazing restaurants around me, I thought, why would I? Wouldn't that be making my life worse? And now I have to say, it took me several months to learn how to cook from scratch because I'd always been, I was raised cooking. But within a few months, I started finding that my diet was much better. I was spending less money, spending less time cooking. And this started propagating through the rest of my life that I decided to go after that week. I made it 2.5 weeks without buying anything packaged. And now I buy stuff very rarely packaged. Almost everything is fresh and or from the bulk section, beans and legumes and nuts. So as it's worked out, let's see, today is June 2nd. In a few days, it will be 2.5 years since the last time I threw out my garbage.
Two and a
Uh,
half years since you throw out your garbage.
yeah, and that's, it used to be once a week. It used to be, I mean, sometimes if you order takeout, it would be like, that would be a full load of garbage right there. So I haven't gotten takeout in a long time, and my food
Okay.
is much better for it. And so now you and I have eaten together apart in sort of like this. What I'd
Yes.
like to do is share how to make delicious, incredible meals without, you know, I don't want to take away from people who are doing all this high tech stuff with the latest things, but also it's available to everyone right here, right now. And so let's say I'm about to get into talking about the food, but I should also talk a little bit about after the food. You know, I had this change that I expected to be really a disaster, and it ended up being really awesome. And I asked myself, why was that? And I found that I had certain expectations that my society told me that, other people can cook better. It's not worth your time. It's going to take too long. And I thought, what else would be like that? What else did society tell me it would be terrible if I gave up? And so I challenged myself to go for a year without flying. And I also thought that that would be the worst year of my life. And within a few months of once I committed to it and doing it, then I found that all my worries about what about family, what about making a living, all that stuff works out when I actually went and faced the problem and lived it. So I haven't flown since 2016. Then some other things. There's lots of other things where I just keep.
Yeah. You keep going at it. You keep methodically addressing all of these big issues. But let's now start the cooking, Josh, because we need some time for
Yes.
this, even though we have pressure cookers, which are super fast. And I also brought my assistant here. Every chef should have an assistant. This is Antonia from our team. And we have 3 identical crock pots here that can pressure cook stuff. And we're going to cook your recipes now. Josh,
Yes.
to show how you can live sustainably. Because you say, we framed you as an activist or something like that. I usually speak about you as the Nelson Mandela of sustainability, one who lives by his values and really, through your example, can lead us in the right direction. So I think this is going to be mightily interesting. So Josh, what do we start with?
Okay, and I want to add one more thing, something new that even you don't know about yet, which is that I'm in the middle of an experiment here at home that I'm trying to live off the grid. I've turned off the circuit to my entire apartment for a week and a half now, and I charge my solar panels on the roof, and my battery is very low because it's been raining here lately. If by some chance I cut out, it's because it's because I'm using only solar for the past week and a half, and so that's my new experiment.
Yeah, by the way, do you know, before this, do you know what this guy's electricity bill is per month? Can you guess? $1.70.
Yeah, that's average. My record low is 96 cents.
Your record is lower, of course. Okay, but guys, you get the point, right? You get the point. Everyone here nods and thinks it's amazing because energy is really expensive, as we all know. But now, let's get to cooking. So what do we do first?
Okay, what I found out was that if I combine 4 ingredients in a pressure cooker, it always works. So a legume, and you can probably think of like dozens of types of legumes. There's green beans, there's black beans and pinto beans and lentils and split peas. Okay, that's one ingredient. Then a green leafy vegetable, which could be chard or spinach or kale or bok choy, and there's lots of varieties of those too. Then a starchy vegetable, carrots, squash, potatoes, sweet potatoes, things like that, and there's lots of varieties of each of those. And if you cook those in the pressure cooker and afterward add nutritional yeast, every single time it works. And if you put in, say there's 20 varieties of each of those, there's like 1,000 different types of stews you can make with just those 3 ingredients every single time it works.
Okay,
so
lovely.
Hopefully you have there.
I have it. We have it all here. So what should we start with?
So in each one of those, what ingredients do you have?
So let's take a look here. We have. I didn't follow your instructions completely. We have millets. We have green lentils, and then we have, what's this called? This is called. I don't actually know what this is called. This is some sort of a. I think it's an barley or something like that. Interesting concept. We found it just in the shelves of the store, so we bought it, and we're going to try it out.
Okay, so I like to add grains. So the grains are not legumes. Grains are more. They're something I also add in. But of those, only the lentils are legume. Do you have any other beans?
I think these all are. Yeah, this white thing is like a bean. I just can't remember what it's called. So we could mix them all.
So I propose use lentils as the base for all of them.
Yep.
And I would put in. I would eyeball it, but put in lentils into each of the container, and maybe I don't know grams, or I would say like a cup or 2 cups in each.
We have we're very good at feeling the right amounts, so we're very experienced chefs here. So shall we mix a little of everything here?
Yeah, I would definitely put lentils in all of them.
Yep.
Because that will be the legume.
Yep. We have now. Now, what we'll do here, I'll put actually everything in everything, everywhere.
Yeah.
So let's do that. That's more fun. And I mean, like, it's an experiment. We're achieving something here. Some sort of I can't call it the scientific rigor here, but let's do it. I think we have enough now.
I call it fun.
Yes. So.
Can we tell them about the last time we did this?
Yeah, the last time we did this was actually at the World Expo in Dubai, where we cooked in the Swedish pavilion, on the center stage in the Swedish pavilion. We cooked the most sustainable meal in the world. And we had people lining up afterwards, just thinking this was really yummy. Not just because of the taste of it, which it is, right? But also because of the notion that you could cook really sustainable and delicious food in no time in a pressure cooker. So that's really convenience and sustainability all packaged in one. So I think it's super. So now,
for the next ingredients, I recommend let's put different things in different ones also, just to get so that people sense the variety that's available.
Okay, so now we have the same base here. So now we have sweet. This is sweet potatoes, right? Or carrots?
Oh.
Sweet potatoes, yes. So,
All right,
so
so put sweet potatoes in one.
in one,
and,
yes, here we go, sweet potatoes. Whoops. And here I have carrots as well.
and put that in another.
Carrots, boof, you go. And then broccoli and
Put that in.
zucchini in the third one.
Put that in. Well, that would be. Do you have another starchy vegetable, like another carrot type thing?
We have kale, but that doesn't count as a starchy vegetable.
Yeah, so I put
No,
broccoli in one, kale in another.
let me redistribute. We have in the last one we have a mix of sweet potatoes and carrots.
Okay,
That's what we're gonna have.
perfect.
So yeah. There we go. Yes, done.
And is that everything? Do you have it? Do you have anything else? Any other vegetables or any other things?
Oh
to put
yes,
in?
then we have broccoli and zucchini, and we have kale, and we have a couple of other things as well.
Oh man,
but
just
that's more
yeah,
for the
it's
topic.
all
Yeah,
gonna be good. So
yes,
I
throw
would put them
it in, right?
as you
So,
like.
so yes, we distributed a little into every pressure cooker here.
And then you'll put in water,
Okay.
about twice as much water as you put in lentils.
Okay, this is gonna be the measurements.
And it turns out that
There it is.
you can get pretty far wrong on this, and it still works. If you put in too
Yeah.
little, then after it cooks, you can add in a little bit more and then keep absorbing water.
Let's put.
And
Yeah,
if
I
you put
think
in too
this
much,
is-
it ends up
yes,
just being a
there you
little
go.
soupy.
Yep, and then we go for the yeast after that. Or
I
no,
put that in
the-
after cooking it.
after cooking. Okay, so then
Yeah.
we have the kale, right?
Put all, yeah,
kale for everyone. Okay, cool.
that goes in, yeah.
The onion we put on afterwards, right?
Onions after.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, if you cook the onion, the flavor gets all lost through it.
Okay.
And it doesn't, it
Yeah.
loses its crispiness.
Okay. Cool. So now we have the kale in as well. That should be it, right?
Yep, and then put the water, and you have the water in.
Yep.
Then close it and put it in, set it for 5 minutes.
Okay. Let's see. How do we do this then? This is where you come in. Okay. So that's how you do it.
Hopefully
So,
everyone's
and
starting
then-
to get
and then
hungry
5
because
minutes.
We're 10 minutes away from eating.
Yep.
I'm hungry.
Let's. Yes, and then go. Super. This is going to be mightily interesting, but at least I'm having lunch. You are also, of course, all invited to have lunch with us afterwards. So now we have 5 minutes here, and it's heating up. Okay, so let's while this is doing its thing, let's talk a bit about leadership here, Josh, because you're not just an activist or the Nelson Mandela. You actually teach leadership to people out there who want to become more sustainable and who want to take the leadership or the leadership role in sustainability, irrespective of what type of company you work with, right?
Yes, I find that what I do on my own of living by my values, I hope that people see me as a role model, and I hope that people follow what I do, but I don't consider that leadership. That's simply living by my values. Separately, I also work with companies to change their cultures. Most people believe that acting sustainably is going to detract from the rest of their life. It's going to be deprivation, sacrifice, a burden. And if you believe that to be the case, it often will be. And then people feel like, oh, what more do I have to do? I'm already avoiding straws. Oh, do I have to do more? When you practice it, if led effectively, leadership is about emotions, role models, beliefs, not always the carrots and sticks and the measurable things about management. So I work with people to develop new beliefs and new strategies and tactics to practice sustainability on a personal level, but especially on a corporate level. So I often work with CEOs, C-suite people, to bring their companies to practice sustainability in a way that is coming from the inside, not imposed from without, intrinsic rather than extrinsic. That's a high-level view.
Okay, and so how do you think? How do people normally react when you help them, lead from the front line, so to say? Do people say, "Nah, this is just something they do when people are watching," or do they actually follow through and become true leaders themselves?
Yeah, if you want, I can go into the details of the specifics of how I work. But broadly speaking, I talk to the top leaders and I ask them what the environment means to them. And most people, when they answer, their first answer is like, oh, what they read in the paper, how everything's falling apart, or there's plastic in the ocean and things like that. But when I work with them enough, they actually start sharing something inside, a personal experience, often growing up. If they grew up by the ocean, it may be beach related. If they grew up in the mountains, it may be mountain related. And everyone shares this really touching, meaningful account of what the environment is like for them. And I ask them to act on that feeling and the feelings that come about in their personal experience with nature, with the environment. When that, if, when that intrinsic motivation comes out, if I ask them to act on that, that's acting on intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic. Most people say, you know, Bangladesh is going to be underwater, 100 million people will be displaced from their homes. You have to do something. Well, if someone's not from Bangladesh, that's really abstract to them. And if you talk to them about here's what happens at 2 degrees, it's still abstract. But if they talk about the apple tree that they picked apples from with their grandmother and made pies when they were a kid, and that apple tree got paved over for housing development, if they act on that, it's very meaningful for them. Now, most people don't think to act on that because they've been told, apple tree, don't you know the Pacific Ocean is filled with plastic? We have to do something on a global scale. It has to scale, it has to be huge. Well, if it's extrinsic, then they're doing it almost, that's like coercion, it's cajoling. And they resist that. Whereas if they act on something that really matters to them, it doesn't take long before that action leads them to feel like, oh, I want to do more and more. And then they connect with these things that before seemed abstract. When that change happens, then they start a process of continual improvement because they want to, because they get to. It's a very different feeling when a CEO of a company is saying, this matters to me personally. Because then the rest of the company starts feeling like, it matters to me personally too. And then the company's doing it because they want to, not because they have to. And then that process of continual improvement, you know, I often, you know, how do you go from the Wright brothers to a 747? It's not one step. You have to do lots and lots and lots of middle steps. And if you're motivated intrinsically, that's natural.
I think it's super cool that you're mentioning how you can go from you know, your own experiences and use those in order to leverage these big actions that we need to facilitate. And also, you said once to me, which I still sometimes wonder about, that you would like to go to these MAGA conferences with Trump fans and actually talk to them because you think that's a place where you could really make some difference. Tell me how.
I think the playing field of sustainability is mostly the hearts and minds of people who are not acting sustainably. The people who are already acting sustainably or doing their best, they're already there. So if you want to lead people, you have to talk to the people you disagree with most. And leadership means going to where they are. And it may be uncomfortable for me to talk to someone who says, you know, we should be burning more fossil fuels. That's the way to get to the solution. There are people out there who, you know, there's a book out there called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. So I want to read that book and learn where these people are coming from so I can talk to them on their terms so it makes sense to them and not hit them over the head and be like, you're terrible, you're bad. That feels good for the person saying it if they like to shame others, but it's not effective in changing them. And that's the challenge. It can be very uncomfortable to empathize with someone I disagree with. But yeah, that's the route to influencing them.
Yeah, it can. But at the same time, what you're describing here, your method of tying your leadership to something that is very deeply felt within you, that can be applied to anyone, right?
Yeah, and in particular within the person that I'm leading, not within me, not within a third person, not within someone else. So if I just say, like, think of your children or think of your grandchildren, I mean, everyone's heard that before, so they have defenses against that. But when they share what matters to them, it's both their vulnerabilities and their passions, the same thing. That's what is to lead someone with. So now, also, I should say that I work on my podcast, I work with very well-known people, famous people. That's another way to influence large groups is through community. So people who are influential within a community, if I work with them, then that whole community becomes open to what that leader was open to. So that's another way that I work on a broader scale than just one-on-one.
And this is also not a story about sacrifices. It's also a story about joy. And we haven't
joy, fun, freedom, meaning, connection, community, purpose.
Exactly, because you know when we first met about a couple of years ago, and we started discussing your not throwing away garbage, you're cooking from from zero with ingredients out of the with no bags, etc., and no flying, and you eventually came around and said, yeah, this is not a sacrifice. This has been a source of
it's
joy.
the opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite. It's people often describe me as extreme, but I'm like extremely fun, extremely delicious. It's every step I take makes the next step easier, and every time I take another step, I find people farther ahead of me, and so I'm actually connecting more with people on deeper levels of values and commitment and community, not less, but more. And more people keep following me. Like people contact me. I get people contacting me and saying, I want to do this. I'm doing this too. And, I have a PhD in physics. I could work on the latest technology, but I think it's more of a cultural issue. People expect deprivation, sacrifice. They expect it's going to be a burden and chore. They think if we don't keep progress going, then we're going to revert to the Stone Age, and 30 is going to become old age again, and mothers are going to die in childbirth. And history shows the opposite. History shows that more technology is not, people weren't dying in the streets before. We think they were, but they weren't. And these beliefs, someone has to address them. We have to realize that what we're cooking here, we're using pressure cookers, which are fairly modern, but the ingredients could have been made 10,000 years ago. And if it works out well, it's going to be delicious and very unpolluting. I have to say, I think the theme of this year is within one generation.
It is.
I wish I had the graph ready, but I've dropped my global footprint by over 90%, according to the online calculators, in under 3 years. Now, you may say that's just one person, but if that's one person improving his life, drops 90% in under 3 years, imagine globally people dropping 90%, and especially the most polluting, who in principle, it's the easiest for them to do it. Then all these ships going across the oceans don't have to be carrying so much stuff, or not so many of them have to go at all. So many planes aren't going to be flying. Many factories aren't going to be churning out, and the mines aren't going to be digging so much stuff out. And that's all through joy, requiring no government change. We don't have to wait for anyone. In fact, it will prompt those changes. So you say within one generation. I say within 3 years. Suddenly things start working very well.
So you were able to drop your emissions or your climate impact with 90% in 3 years by achieving joy.
Yes, I go the other way. By achieving joy, I reduced by 90%, and it's everything, not just climate, but all sorts of pollution.
I think that's super cool. So actually, these pressure cookers are now counting down from 5 minutes. They've heated up, and they're counting down. So we still have a few minutes to go before lunch is served here up on stage. So Josh, I think it's so sad. You sit in the US, and while I love talking to you, and I can see your face now, thanks to technology. When will we get you over here to Europe?
Yeah, some history. I was supposed to speak at this event in 2020, and it was all set up that I was going to sail there. Now the pandemic hit, and that didn't happen. So I'm working on getting there. After I stopped flying, I realized I do want to get off North America sometime, and that's going to mean sailing. So I took sailing lessons. Then Greta got all the attention, but I want to point out, I started learning before she started sailing, and I do have to make it over there. I'm not sure exactly when it will be.
No. Well, we don't have to plan. Let's make it a joyous journey for you. And someday you will come over here, and because you have a lot of things to teach us. But whilst we're waiting for you, let's talk a bit about. You have a book upcoming, right? As well.
Yes, I have a book on sustainability leadership, and it's getting great attention from publishers. I haven't gotten a contract yet, but I would guess it will start reaching bookshelves in about a year.
In about a year's time, and that also means that you will be able to reach more people with your message. But already now, you actually do these get-togethers for the C-level executives as well, and you actually do those. You can do those online as well, right? So you're not just confined to New York.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Most of them aren't in New York. It's great when I can do them in person, but mostly I can't. And yeah, so these are done all around the world. I work with, sometimes it's a sustainability committee, but it's really best when it's the CEO is involved and a couple people from the C-suite.
So if there are any CEOs in this room that would like to have some proper leadership training from the world's most sustainable living man, at least one that lives in cities, you should definitely contact Josh, because I've seen him live doing these things, and it's just amazing. It blows you away what you can achieve with not so much, right? So it's more mind shift than anything else. And so I'd really encourage you, if you don't find them out there, contact me. I'll put you in touch, and go from there. And I think you're such a great inspiration to me, have been throughout all these years. I'm of course nowhere near your achievements. I'm thinking of it. I guess that's the first step, and then I need to act more on it. I think we all need to act more on it. But as you say again, there's a price for this, and the price for this is joy, and so it's really no sacrifice at all. So how are we doing with our pressure cookers, Antonia? We have 2 minutes left on one of them, and it's still not done yet, but it will be shortly. And then what we do then, Josh, once this is done, what do? We open them up.
Open them up. You'll stir in nutritional yeast into each of them, about a quarter cup into each of them, and then put them in bowls. Put a little onions, and do you have nuts?
Yes,
or avocados to put on top?
And we also have some cucumbers, some paprika, and some tomatoes, I think.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, those are exactly what to put on top. So those go on top uncooked because they're crisp. They have more distinct flavors, and they're the toppings, and they also add color. So probably what will come out will be like a greenish stew. And so the tomatoes, the cucumbers, these will add a little color and texture.
Okay, cool.
And then everybody eats. Probably they're letting out a bit of steam and some smell. So hopefully it smells good now.
No, it does. I felt that already. So it's okay. So the yeast goes in, and we then blend it a bit.
Stir it all up.
And same goes with the onions. Should we stir that as well, or should we just put it on top?
Yeah, put that on top after you put it in someone's bowl.
Okay, cool. So it's and the nuts as well on top. Yes. Okay, very good then. So we have.
And I like to crush the nuts. If you have like whole almonds or whole cashews, I like to crush them. But that's up to the people eating.
Yep. What about salt? Yes, we do have salt here.
Oh yeah, so I put salt and pepper on the side for people to put on to their taste.
Yes, salt and pepper on the side. Okay, very good. Salt and pepper.
Yeah,
on
you'll
the
notice
side.
I used to, when I first started doing this, I would put olive oil in it, but I kept putting in less and less and less until I just didn't put in any, and the nuts are the fat. So, and the nuts are going to be much more healthy. Well, in my opinion, as I understand, they're not refined; they're just a whole food. So I prefer a whole food to a refined food. So there's no fat in there so far. That's what the nuts are for. When there's avocados, they go really well on top, or coconut.
Very good. Now we're venting the first one here. So the pressure is being released into the room, and the smells are starting to go out there. And oh God, we had a lot of pressure in that one. So soon.
And depending on how much water was in there, it may be soupy, or maybe if it's really dry, then you put in a little water, and the lentils, when they're hot, will keep absorbing water.
Okay, cool. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, last time they came out perfect as far as
last time it was absolutely brilliant.
In Dubai, I remember you left the video on after we were talking.
Yep.
And I just saw for like 20, 30 minutes, people were going up and still getting more stew.
Yeah. No, until there was nothing left. That's
feels
really
so good
no waste cooking.
it feels so good to serve something and people enjoy it. And when I do it from like 10,000 miles away, it's something extra special.
No,
And especially because these meals probably a couple dollars worth of food and yet can serve 3 or 4 meals each.
yep.
And also available almost anywhere. I mean, the legumes will stay on your shelf for months, for years. The nuts also. A lot of the vegetables, things like kale or cabbage, they stay good for weeks. And all you have to do is put them in water and they'll stay fresh. Then, and the potatoes and the starchy things also. So someone who doesn't have access, it's very important to me. Growing up the way that I did in my family, we didn't have access to a lot of fresh stuff like I do today. So it's very important to me that accessibility is important, that people can do this whether they have access to, say, a farmer's market or not. So this is not based on difficult to find ingredients. And if they are difficult to find, they still stay on your shelf for a long time. Or if you, things like cabbage, they stay fresh really well also. So this is really low maintenance food.
This is super cool. I think also what we should do is probably one of these days we'll try this and add some of the umami flavor, because we have you missed that, Josh, but we had earlier.
I saw earlier today,
in the,
you must have umami, something like that.
Yeah, umami. We have these guys from Israel that can ferment anything into a secret super sauce that really is making everything very yummy and tasty. So I think there are also additional technologies, so to say, that we can use here as well to make this even better in the future. Oh, this looks brilliant. This is perfect. The water measurements are apparently amazing. Yeah. So let's put in some nutritional yeast here.
Also, I didn't suggest mushrooms, but mushrooms and seaweed I often put in, and they can add a lot of umami themselves.
Yeah. The umami here is probably the key ingredients that we can add to them as well.
The yeast gives it a lot of that.
Oops, my glasses are fogging up here. Okay, so
Probably
nutritional
from
yeast.
your anticipation of the flavor.
Yep, and then let's have some more here. Do you have some more? Nah, a little bit. No, let's just pour it. Okay, perfect. Now let's go for the toppings.
So the toppings let people put on their own bowls after you take it out of the pressure cooker.
So toppings people put on themselves. Okay, very good then. So
if you did put them in there, they would start to lose flavor.
Yeah.
But
No. We actually managed not to.
Some things I put in at this stage, if you wanted to put in garlic or jalapeno, I would put them in right now after it cooks, but so it mixes in. So for people out there thinking, oh, I want more garlic flavor, this is where I would put it in.
Okay, so someone up for a taste? Yes, come on here, girls. Let's have, you get the first one here. So line up for food. And here you have, and you put some of the toppings over there onto the food. It's basically, these are 3 variants of the same recipe. So I think you'll be as happy with, with any of them.
Try a third of each.
So here, and then we go, some more. I feel like I'm in a school kitchen.
This is where everyone was thinking up until now. Who is this Josh? Why is he talking? Can you just give me the food?
That's here. There you go. Free lunch today. They say that there are no free lunches, but apparently there are free lunches. At least if you participate in these experiments. Det här är... Millets, everything is the same basically now. We have sweet potatoes in here, mostly carrots in here, and over there we have a mixture of different ingredients. Yes, in a second. We're done. People want to rearrange my stage here, so we'll be fast in serving. Let's move this table away. Do we have? Yeah, let's fill one more bowl, and then oh yeah, we have more there. So let's have this bowl over there.
Now you have me at the edge of my seat if anyone's had a taste yet.
Yeah, what did it taste like, girls? I get thumbs up from first row here. Super. And I think you have a success here, Josh. People are loving it.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too. I want to have one of those bowls now. You're just taking it away. I'm going to run off stage for a second. I'll come back. I just need to grab one of those bowls. Thank you very much. And toppings are over here?
Yeah, and so this one was with lentils. If you did the exact same thing, but used black beans instead, you would get a very, very different stew. But it's the same thing, but it would be very different. And if you substitute instead of carrots, if you had a squash, or if instead of the kale or broccoli, you use spinach, each little change makes a different thing, a different result, but it's really the same thing. And so it always works.
Then the only thing you need to have is a pressure cooker.
Yes, which lasts a lifetime.
They last a lifetime, and these are super electrical, pressure cookers, and you can have just normal pressure cookers as well. That's not the problem at all.
Also, we didn't put much spice in there, so if I tend to go with turmeric and cumin, which will make it more of an Indian thing. You could go with basil or oregano and make it more Italian. You could go with lemongrass and lime and make it Thai. So this base, you can go in lots of directions if you start adding spices. Or if you put peanut in, you can make it more like an African thing.
Lovely. Okay, Josh, thank you so much for participating and cooking from, I don't know how many miles away, but lots of miles away. It's been amazing as always. And I thank you, Josh, not just for the recipe, but also for all your wisdom. See you soon again, I hope.
See you soon again. I hope
Cheers.
sometime soon in person.
Yes, definitely live. Bye for now.
Bye.
A big round of applause for Josh Spodek. This is really good. This is really what a zero waste activist eats, and he enjoys it, and so do I. So let's move on in the program. We have a theme now.